Back for more. Eyes are watching God, pages 80 to 100. Taking a look at what we got here, page 81 and 82. Joe is ill, right? And as we left them at the end of last reading, Joe, who's getting older, he's about 50, and Janie's a little under 40, has started to make fun of Janie publicly and criticize things she does and criticize the way she looks. And we had the big incident where then she insulted him in front of the whole town, right? Now, from then on out, things are terrible in their relationship. They don't really get along, they don't really spend any time together, and Joe doesn't even trust Janie anymore, right? She found out from neighbors that he has been refusing to eat the food that she makes him because he thinks that she is poisoning him. Now, as much as Janie at this point doesn't like Joe, I don't think there's any evidence that she would want to kill him or poison him, especially since he's in such terrible health to get from the get-go. Um, but however, since cutting Janie off, the people who've been going to see Joe are people who would not ordinarily have been allowed to go see Joe back when Joe had more power and was physically stronger. People the town doesn't like and respect very much. Now, as Joe is getting ready, his health is failing, and it's his kidneys. When a man kidneys stop working altogether, there's no way for him to live. He needed medical attention 2 years ago. It's too late now, and that was the problem because the people who were going to see Joe weren't telling him the truth and weren't telling him what was actually happening to him. Now, Janie decided that she was going to go in and talk to Joe one more time before the end. And if you wanted to write the paper about whether Janie is a strong character or not, this would be a scene you would put in. You know, through a lot of their marriage, she put up with a lot, right? And Joe was physically abusive and emotionally abusive. And she stood up for herself a couple times, but she definitely does here as he's coming in. Now on page 85, 86, she said, "Nah, Jody, I come in here to talk with you, and I'm going to do it too. It's for both our sakes I'm talking." He gave me a long grumble and eased over onto his back. "Jody, maybe ain't been such a good wife to you, but Jody, that's 'cause you ain't got the right feeling for nobody. You ought to have some sympathy about yourself. You ain't no hog." But Jody, whoops, sorry, I went back page. We'll go back to the page. Now she says, "Tain't no really you need to die in Jody if you had the doctor, but it don't do no good bring that up now. That's just what I wants to say, Jody. You wouldn't listen. You done lived with me for 20 years and you don't know me half at all. And you could have, but you were so busy worshiping the works of your own hands and cuffing folks around in their minds till you didn't see a whole heap of things you could have. And that's about it, right? I mean, Joe's sole focus from the moment they got married and then went away after their wedding, and he bought her fancy stuff, but then he just talked about plans for the town, right? And so right from the get-go, this has been the problem, that he won't listen to her, and he's more interested in having a lot of power and authority than in really being a good husband and loving Janie. She said, "I know you wasn't going to listen to me. You changes everything, but nothing don't change you, not even death. But you're going out here and I ain't gonna hush. Now you're gonna listen to me one more time before you die. Have you wait all your life, trample and mash down and die rather than to let yourself hear about it? Listen, Jody, if you ain't that Jody I run down the road with. Use what's left of him after he died. I ran off to keep a house with you in a wonderful way, but you wasn't satisfied with me the way I was. Nah, my own mind had to be squeezed and crowded out to make room for mine and yours. Make yours and mine. Shut up. I wish thunder and lightning would kill you." Now, that's not a very nice thing to say to your wife as you are on your deathbed. But she said her piece, right? And it wasn't, he didn't want to hear it, and he didn't respond all that well to it. But she says right up here, "All this bowing down, all this disobedience under your voice, that ain't what I rushed off down the road to find out about you." Now, Joe dies, right? And at this point, you can imagine the things that she's thinking. I'm sure on one level she is sad. I mean, she has been married to him for a long time, and so there's some sympathy and pity there. But when you think about it, especially for the last, I don't know, 15, 16 years, her life's been pretty miserable. So on the other level, this is freedom, right? She's finally able to live her life the way she wants to, but she can't do that, right? If she walked outside right now, just after her husband died, and showed on her face what she's feeling inside, in that she's happy and excited, the town would think she's a monster, or maybe thought the town would think she killed him, right? So it says right here, she went over to the dresser to look hard at her skin and features. The young girl was gone, but a handsome woman had taken her place. She tore off the kerchief from her head and let down her plentiful hair. This was a kind of a symbol, and if you're writing about symbols in the book, this would be a big one to bring up. Joe had forced her to keep her hair tied up as kind of a symbol of his control, and as soon as he's gone, then that control is gone too. The weight, the length, the glory were there. She took careful stock of herself, then combed her hair and tied it back up again. Then she starched and ironed her face, forming it into just what the people wanted to see, and opened up the window and cried, "Come here, people. Jody's dead. My husband's gone from me." Now, starching and ironing her face is not literal because that would really hurt. But what it is she's trying to make her face look appropriately sad, right? She's trying to let the people in the town see Janie as they expect to see her when her husband dies, that is looking really sad. So she has to, it takes an effort, but she does it. There's a huge funeral for Joe because even though he was fairly cruel to people, the town is significantly better off, and they knew that he was an important person, right? So she burned all her head rags, and now what she finds herself are people in the town are talking about her. They don't know much about her other than being the mayor's wife because Joe wouldn't let her talk to anyone, right? The town thinks she views herself as Mrs. Mayor, therefore better than the rest of them. And that's just not what she's really interested in. And they also start to talk to her about money, right? And over here, a woman by herself is a pitiful thing, she was told over and over. They need aides and assistant. Not, they don't need aides. They need aid. That's a very sorry. They need aid and assistance. God never meant them to try and stand by themselves. You ain't been used to knocking around and doing for yourself, Miss Starks. You've been well taken care of, and you needs a man. No. My guess is if I'm Janie, the last thing I think I need at this point is a husband, right? Because, even before Joe, she was miserable with Logan too. So this is the first time she's been alone and she just ignored them. She laughed at them and kind of ignored them because there's a lot of dudes in the town who would love to marry Janie, right? She's very wealthy and she's beautiful. Like if in the movie that we won't get to watch, but you could watch, Halle Berry plays Janie, right? So it's that kind of level of beauty. Um, then, going on a little bit. Now, at this point, at beginning of chapter 10, page 94, 95, we get the new husband, right? Now, if you were writing the money and power paper for this, we'd seen how Nanny's position that if you marry a man who's got land and money and property, you will be treated well is not true, right? And what we've seen is that the more money the husband has, the worse they treat their wife. Now, at this point, for dude number 3, Tea Cake is very different. He's a lot younger. He's a good looking dude. He does not have a lot of money, right? And so initially he treats her really well. And then we'll kind of come back to that. Now, Tea Cake in the book is very smooth. He's very popular with the ladies, and the way he is popular is he's very flirty and goofy. He's silly. He sings, he dances, he tells jokes, he makes them laugh, right? If you watch the movie, with Halle Berry. The only character they really don't get correct, I think, is Tea Cake. And the dude who plays Tea Cake looks the part. He's a handsome dude, but he's not funny. He's not weird. He's not goofy. He's none of the things in the book or in the movie that Tea Cake is in the book. And so the first thing he tells her to do right down here is, how about you playing some checkers? You looks hard to beat. She says, I is, because I can't play a lick. You don't cherish the game then, he says. Yes, I do. And then again, I don't know whether I do or not because nobody ever showed me. Now, if you think about it, how much time has Janie spent playing or having fun in any of her relationships? None. It's all been work, right? They wanted to use her, whether A, she was just a beautiful trophy wife or for labor, but they never had any fun with her, right? Now, right here, somebody wanted her to play. Somebody thought it natural for her to play. That was even nice. She looked him over and got little thrills from every one of his good points. Those full, lazy eyes, lashes curling sharply away like drawn scimitars, the lean, over-padded shoulders and narrow waist, even nice. He was jumping her king. She screamed in protest again against losing the king she had such a hard time acquiring. Before she knew it, she'd grabbed his hand to stop him. He struggled gallantly to free himself. That is, he struggled, but not hard enough to wrench a lady's fingers. Now, we go on here, and this is the first person that she's ever really kind of been interested in. I think she has zero interest in Logan, right? And I think for Joe, Joe was better. Joe was a step up from Logan. He was better looking. He dressed very well. He had money. He had, ambition and stuff, but he still isn't someone she's really interested in. Now, we get some hints. We get some hints here that Tea Cake is going to be better for her than he first appears to be. So first of all, we've had some hints. If you remember back in the beginning of the book, Nanny had said, I bet you want some dressed up dude that has to look at the sole of his shoes every time he crosses the street to see whether he got enough leather there to make it across. And what she's implying is that most of the people that Nanny thinks Janie was going to be interested in are people who have nothing, right? If you have to look at the bottom of your shoes when you get to the curb to see if your shoes are going to fall apart before you make it across the street, that means you do not have very nice shoes and you do not have much money. Tea Cake addresses several of these concerns right away. So everyone in town is at the baseball game, and she says, "How are you going to get there?" And he said, "Wait around here for a car. If none don't come, I got good shoe leather. Tain't but 7 miles no how. I could walk that in no time easy." Now, 7 miles walking is a lot further than crossing the street. And so this lets us know that even if Tea Cake doesn't have a lot of money, he's a person of substance in a way that Nanny didn't think he would be, or that Nanny didn't think the person Janie would fall in love would be. So that's one, right? And if you're writing about symbols, there was another couple things coming up here. One of the symbols is the pear tree, right? And the pear tree becomes kind of Janie's vision in her mind of a romantic, passionate, loving marriage, right? And so we find out what Tea Cake's real name is. And it said, I sure wasn't expecting for it to be needed. The name my mama gave me is Virgil Woods. They calls me Tea Cake for short. So, Pear Tree Lady is marrying Mr. Woods. Get it? I had a creative writing teacher in high school who referred to that as a 2x4, as if you were whacking your reader across the face with symbolism. Anyway, they have a lot of fun, and he stops by the store from time to time. Um, and then they're getting ready to leave, right? Now, word starts to get around that Janie and Tea Cake are hanging out together, right? And the town views this as scandalous. It was just a little over a year since Joe had died, right? And she's already running around with a younger dude. And maybe in the same way that, and she's probably 10, 12 years younger than he is. And if you had an older dude who was a widower, his wife had passed away and he had a lot of money, and a attractive younger woman who did not have much money started hanging around her, people would make comments about that too. And so it's the same type of thing. And so that's all I have for you today as we are up to page 100. The book picks up from here, and I think generally students like it more from here on out. Tea Cake is a fun character, and actually quite a bit of action happens from here on out. So thank you. I'll talk to you tomorrow.